KRMA, or Channel 6, first went on the air January 30th, 1956 in Denver, Colorado. It was funded by the Denver Public School System to educate broadcast viewers for free. In 1987, KRMA became a PBS station, with 90% of its budget coming from community donations. Today, KRMA is the headquarters for Rocky Mountain Public Media, with stations in the Rocky Mountains in southern Colorado. They even have a jazz Latin radio station. Referred to as RMPBS, the downtown Denver station produces content all around Colorado. With the staff's permission, I filmed the show Colorado Memories, as the producers of the show made episodes for their 6th season. Using surveys and interviews, we figured out what aspects of their identities most colored their experiences in storytelling.
Where does your identity, your personality, beliefs, how does that factor into your storytelling?
That's a tricky question, because it depends on the story.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, my biggest part of my background is telling news stories. So my beliefs don't really influence it one way or the other.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of cliche, but I guess when you're like downtown with your friends and someone catcalls you and makes you realize that, oh, they're looking at me in a different way than they'd look at, my male friends or male family members.
My family would just tell stories of them growing up. I'd listen to my grandparents, we would kind of teach each other things about life through our stories.
I think why I have a problem with choosing one is that I identify really with my family's identity rather than, kind of having my own. I don't know. It's very much like a familial identity rather than my own.
Okay.
It's interesting. But I think that's why I love storytelling.
It's something I don't think about a lot. So the fact that you're asking that question and having me look at it through that lens is really interesting. But it was the most salient, to use your word, on your list. I don't know that that's how I would self-identify. I mean, obviously I'm a woman, so I identify as that. But
it's called Stations Archived Memories. And we began 18 years ago, basically with an idea that we would have a box or two of photos and maybe a handful of memorabilia items. And we would archive those and start with that process. Well, little did we know that as soon as we started doing that, more boxes arrived and more boxes arrived and more boxes arrived.
Yeah, it was, because I didn't know if I could do research abroad because I don't speak a foreign language well enough to go somewhere else. So I was thinking, what could I do anywhere?
Yeah.
I figured since I had access to the folks at PBS, that would be a good resource. Yeah.
Well, this is great. I can't wait to see it.
Regular spaces that you guys work in that you think are free for me to go in.
Yeah, there's a lot of places. Well, we have several areas that we work in, specifically with production, but this here that we're in, it's Studio 1. You can get a wide shot later. So, but a lot of times you'll see, we have a lot of studio lights, we have the big jig, and so we rearrange this area to fit our needs. And so occasionally Colorado, my show, will record an interview here. However, it's definitely not preferred because we prefer to go to these places, be in the area, kind of adds like I said earlier, a little bit more validity, we think, and also it's harder for us to make this look like a living room. Each studio has its own purpose. And so a lot of times we'll film smaller interviews in here, depending on the shows, interstitial content, but a lot of it, our Arts and Culture show, Arts District, we'll film in here. They have a 4K digital set that they use, so the green screen, and we use it enough that it just stays up all the time now. My race, ethnicity, and my age are the two most identifiable traits in my life, ones that I think about every day, because I think in a way they affect most of how I go through my life. I think, especially being so young when dealing with insurance or other factors, or even talking with people about my job, a lot of people say, "Oh wow, you're really young to be in that position." I understand that other people say, "No, I'm Latin American, so I want to be known as Latino. I'm Chicano," and that's cool. I respect that. But for me, it was actually. I always remember this conversation with my dad when he says, "No." I was curious because I heard some people refer to themselves or me as Latino, as Mexican, as Chicano, or as white even, and whatnot. And I asked my dad this, and he says, "Oh, they're all one the same."
I think this industry, like TV and film, traditionally was a very male industry, and so there's challenges around that. However, nonprofits are very female. So PBS is an interesting space because there's a lot of females in our content department who are producers. So I found, and these are my people, basically, is what I'm saying. And with age, that also was one that I related to on your list because I've been doing this for a long time. So in my work, my age is, I think it's more experience than age, though.
And there's just a deep history in Colorado, which I love because working on this TV show, my grandfather is from Leadville and my grandmother's from Minturn, and then on my mother's side, her grandfather was a rancher and he moved here and he started saddle making. Sometimes I'll find myself looking, if I have run across in DPL, my Durham Public Library, some photos of Leadville. We kind of secretly looking for like family members, and like, oh, maybe they'll pop up. It'll be a fun day.
Well, I learned that I liked growing up on the farm. I look back on those experiences as being really invaluable. As far as a kid finding their way around, we had a lot of land to play on. So I had a sister and a brother, and we'd have our friends over, and we'd just have open reign to a lot of land. That I was the first female hired in Louisville, Kentucky as a news photographer. There was one other gal in the market when I first started. But yeah, I could see where she was constantly reminded of being the oddball, sort of the odd one out. But I think as far as picture taking and poetry has always kind of been, would probably lead the pack as far as it being part of my identity.
Well, I feel like being a woman is something that is a big part of my identity, especially in these past couple years with the elections and our new, political climate. Like I've gone to the Women's March, and it's just become something that I've become a lot more aware of. And just the idea that being a woman may hold me back in some areas, like in jobs and in politics and stuff like that. Women just don't have the same rights as men.
Sleeping in the, bring it to all right, I love it. Great social media. You can find it. Okay, thank you. That doesn't worry me too much. I think we'll be okay.
Dude, just rent an RV. Let's do an RV.
That'd be awesome. That would be amazing. Actually, my aunt has one. Right?
I do. I rent one. Oh, pop up. It's all yours. Where are you going?
Meeker.
Oh, Meeker.
Yeah,
I have a photo of Meeker.
For the Meeker Sheepdog Championship trials.
Oh, wow.
Well, let's see.
So this is the newsroom. All three shows have spaces here. Ours is called. We have these first first two rows, I guess. Arts District has the next one down, and then our investigative show, Insight with John Ferrugia, has the spot in the very back. And so this is our workspace. We do work with interns a lot, and so this gives us the ability to, as a group, stay together and communicate. But this is pretty much where it all happens. Unless we're out shooting, we're usually here researching, taking phone calls, QCing and editing ourselves, anything like that. Does that happen here?
I usually say that my first memories were in Colorado, and my first memories were actually in my grandparents' basement. And I just remember just being in this kind of like dark basement, but being very comfortable there, and all of my father's stuff and his brother's stuff was there, and there were like pool tables and a gun cabinet and this huge box TV and like this one very strange rug with a tiger on it. It was like a completely different generation, and it was my father's and his father's, and it's strange to think that those are kind of my first memories, but I really love them.
When I was younger, I really loved animals and the ocean, so I wanted to be a marine biologist for a really long time. And then once I got into middle school, my family got like a Mac for the first time, and I started like messing around with iMovie and making movies. And then I realized, I actually might be kind of good at this. I really like this. And then sophomore year, I was kind of pushed in the direction of doing something a little more realistic. And then I decided in college that I should listen to middle school me, who kind of was right all along. And then I went to film school.
I'd say the stereotype, right, is every young boy, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer. Mine was I really want to be an astronaut. But even before that, when I was 9 years old, my dad and I, we went to go see the first Harry Potter movie, and everything that I had pictured in my mind is what I saw on screen. It was the coolest experience of my life at the time, and I mean, one of the most defining moments of my life even today. And I remember I walked out of that movie, and my dad and I loved it so much, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to make movies. And my dad and I ended up seeing that movie every weekend. I don't know how many times.
So I had a little, I don't know, it wasn't a brownie camera, but there was this little skinny camera with a flash that stood up, had like 5 bulbs on it, old school. And I would just take pictures, and I still have them. And then you send them away for 2 weeks, you get them back. You know, it's really, really very different. Well, I was expected to go to college. That was expected. I considered the Air Force, getting into one of the armed services, but chose college. I wanted to live in the city. I wanted to get out of the farm town. And decided just to go with a city school, big city school, and go to Pittsburgh. And I loved that town. It was fun. It was a great place to kind of spread your wings and get around, other than driving forever to get to the nearest town. You could take the bus and hop downtown. It was big and open, a lot of people, a lot of shiny metal glass buildings, you know.
I've always been a director. Always. I used to make up plays. I really wanted to be, I didn't know, I was so young, I didn't know what a playwright was, but I probably would say that was the first thing I wanted to be, because I would make up stories, and then I would direct my siblings. I had a younger brother and a younger sister. I would direct them to act out my plays, and we would always make up stories and then record them. Like I would do radio stories on the little tape recorder and talk through the vacuum cleaner tube and make sound effects. And then when I got a little older, I went through the traditional, I want to be a lawyer. And then I wanted to be a writer, write books. And then I wanted to be a doctor. So most of high school, I really, really, really wanted to be a doctor. But I came back to storytelling. That's not what I studied, though. I studied international affairs and economics.
And because I think that may help narrow things down a little bit. I went through our immediate area. Since we're on season 6, we kind of moved things around a little bit to accommodate. But yeah, I'm pretty positive I mailed it to Dale's address, and that was the one. At least that was my understanding that you gave me. Well, part of the challenge of filmmaking, right, is that we have to balance a lot of different logistical elements, from our availability to location availability to historian availability or expert, whoever you're interviewing. The episode I'm trying to film is one on Auraria, and that episode specifically I've been working with the campus to try to find, are there days where there's fewer students, not necessarily no students, but also teacher availability. So they have office hours, they have other responsibilities. So trying to manage all of that while finding a couple hours for someone to sit down and have enough time to say what they need to say is part of our job. And sometimes that works out great, and other times you go through the rescheduling process.
I remember you saying that you were from the Auraria area. How has it been filming that episode, knowing the history of the building?
Well, my family lived there. It was my great-grandfather. And so my family is one of the displaced Aurarians. And so it's having a very personal connection with an episode, I think, is always a benefit. When you're connected to an episode or a story, right, you're more passionate about the story. And so you're, I think it adds just that little extra something special. By no means am I arguing that a campus is a bad thing. There's been a lot of opportunity provided by that campus, and it really helped develop Denver as as a city. But at the same time, right, what I'm also trying to look into is that the conflict of the story is the urban redevelopment. And so, that happened. It's a problem that's happening today, or an issue that's happening today. And so, I think it's funny how we start seeing these parallels in history.
So I came out of college with a biology degree, and I looked around for a little bit, for some biology jobs. I got to thinking about what I actually wanted to do. I looked at all these jobs, and maybe it was just Denver at the time, the job market, and I was like, I don't want to be a seasonal worker and have a job for 3 months in outside 24/7 or wake up at 4 a.m. like my sister did that. So then I kind of started looking for film ins, and I knew I couldn't get a job because I had no experience other than what I had done, on my own time or in high school. So I just looked for film internships, and my sister, she has a thing against unpaid internships, which I understand, but I was like, I have no experience, so if I want to do this, I just need to start from zero and work my way up. So I applied here, and they let me intern, and it was great. And I do like the idea of nonprofit work.
So when I was first starting to make little movies with my friends, they were mostly we were mostly just copying other movies. But then I started wanting to have more agency over my stories, and kind of make them how I wanted to make them. And I got all sorts of inspiration from other people on YouTube and movies that I liked, TV shows that I liked. And then in middle school, I was part of this video news program where we had to go out and make TV series and stuff like that. And that was just so much fun. Me and my friends would make parodies and then our own stuff.
And so I went to college for that. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Cinema and Television Arts, but I specified with Cinema from Elon University in North Carolina. And even there, as soon as I got there, I said, okay, you have 4 years with free equipment to make it. You have no excuse to be making, nothing. So every weekend, I'd check out equipment, learn something new. I'll watch more movies then than I do now, but I'd always want to learn something. So I'd use each school project to try to learn something better, whether it's lighting or camera movement or acting or writing. And fast forward a couple of years, I never thought I'd be doing documentary work, believe it or not. I was that guy. I said, I'm going to be doing narrative work, feature films. I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to make it big.
Well, I'd always sort of done both, poetry and still photography. And I didn't really have an influence in either of them until after college. I thank Kentucky folks for shooting still pictures. I bought a nice film camera in Kentucky and just started taking film. Couldn't take a lot, it's so different than digital now, you can just take it and erase it off the card. But I didn't really have any kind of formal training until I got into news photography and I'd go to critique sessions in our station and then across different groups. Went to what they call the NPPA boot camp in Norman, Oklahoma. You can spend a week there in a concentrated setting learning about storytelling.
I was his assistant director, and then once I was behind the camera, I was just like, wow, this is just really cool. And at the same time, the acting troupe that I was in, we all got involved in this really bad, low budget, it's not even a B movie, it's like a D movie, really bad. There was no money, so even though I was talent in it, I got to, all of a sudden, oh, here's a camera, go shoot this. I found myself hanging off, with all harnessed up, off of the side of a cliff, because it was the scene where the two guys were fighting at the edge of the cliff, and I'm harnessed up, holding the camera, filming these guys, and I'm just like, this is so cool. It was such a bad scene, but just to be filming it, the visual in the screen, oh my God, I can't even tell you how much I love the visual in the little LCD monitor of the camera. That's the palette. Working on this, or it's been in our consciousness since September. So, I don't know, we organically gather information, and then we do serious research too for the grant. Mm-hmm. So we've done research when we did the grant, and then we have to do an outline, and then we do questions. I'm gonna fly the drone. feet up and just like. Well, no. If we just go this way, like, and just get the ivy.
Really quickly, could you explain to me what you guys were doing?
Oh yeah, we were just testing the lighting and the sound and the cameras to make sure we have the perfect shot all set up for when the interviewee comes.
Nice. Where did you learn that?
Well, I do go to film school, and then I've been on a couple shoots so far, so I've been learning a lot.
All right. Can you clap one time right in front of your face really loud? Perfect. That's how we sync our cameras. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She's just testing your audio. Can you tell me where you were born and raised? I see now the shadow. The sun is coming. Is that in the shot? See that shadow? If we have that kind of noise,
Do you want me to stop?
that is not.
Do you want me to stop for a second?
Yes. So we'll just take a breathe.
Yeah, and then.
Yep, just right there, but do it loosely. That's perfect. That's fine.
Right.
Yep, gone. Problem solved. Thank you. Okay, we're ready to roll. Let's roll.
Do you want this door closed over for noise? Or?
Snap. Yes. And do you want to be in here with us, Erin?
Yeah.
And yes, but that's going to be a
We'll have to get an
problem.
extension cord. Can you grab an extension cord?
Yeah.
And then it's plugged in across the way. Just turn the light on and plug it, and we'll give you some slack.
We could probably plug it in. There's a.
We should just rub it in the door. It's already going there.
So let's talk. Are there any key people in the history before the? I want to talk about Ruth Porter and this house.
Porter where?
Yes. Is there anyone before her that is notable to your history? Okay, so just because. So we'll just do that one question again. So talk
All right.
again. You can relax. You're comfortable. So talk to me about the importance of the Denver Botanic Gardens to Colorado, to the world. Like, why is this such a special place?
Which is a resetting a shoot. What does that mean?
Oh, just changing the background. Everybody has to have a different background, otherwise it would be like boring visually. So we like to choose a background that sort of jives with who they are and what they do. And it'd be great to be outside, but it's too noisy today.
Well, how did you get involved with doing that?
With contracting?
Yeah.
I was with Rocky Mountain PBS for about 12 years.
Nice.
Until 2016, and then jumped off and started my own company.
Cool. Why did you want to start your own company?
It's hard to get full-time work in video production, and I knew I had a lot of contacts and a lot of colleagues who knew people, so this sort of ripple effect of people that I knew, I just started contacting them. So I would say it's going well. I would say 2 years after starting, I'm busier than I thought I would be. Not as busy as I want to be, but I don't know if you're, as a freelancer or contractor, if you're ever as busy as you want to be. I keep swaffling between like 20 and 22 minutes. Do you want to keep rolling some?
Swaffling?
Waffling.
Yeah, please. That's fine.
So we'll keep
now
going.
you've got it.
So now when it's down to like 5, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Some of the preservation efforts for both this building and even, I'd say, more so the Bencher Conservatory. And like, I've seen the before and after pictures. It's pretty stunning. And then
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe just talk to me a little bit about, why not just knock down these buildings and build brand new ones? And then we'll come and do more filming, or all the filming actually. And all of your partners have been great. Tyga's been great.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just saw him the other day. He
Fitz
was
and
wonderful.
David is great, so.
David is so knowledgeable.
This is an interesting one for you to film
Yeah.
because it's a place. It's not a person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if that counts as
I-
a story.
It does, I think, because places can have stories, and it's a lot about like material remembrance.
But if you talk to at the end of the summer, she could like do the whole thing by herself. Because we're doing historical documentaries, we don't know if we're going to be able to have a visual. So 2 cameras means we do one really wide and one really close up, so we can cut in between them.
Freehand if you guys need it.
Makeup.
Cool.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys.
It started raining.
And so this is the show. It's going to air on March 14th. It'll be online the next day. Okay. And we'll have a YouTube link so you can embed that, share that, do whatever you like with it. So we'll be in touch for more filming.
Yes.
All the visuals.
And all the library archives and stuff.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We'll probably write the script and then, come back and film the visuals based on what we're going to be focusing on.
Okay.
But
Sounds good. Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
Thank you, ladies.
Let's see. I guess through video, it is really cool at PBS that I do get to edit a little bit and work on some of their footage and stuff like that. So that is cool, just to have a little voice in such a cool television program. But then on my own time, I love telling stories to like my family and friends of, just like funny things that happen to me during the day. And like at dinner time, my family, we usually, talk about our days and we all kind of go around and tell stories. We don't even, realize we're doing it. But that's definitely like a highlight of my day is just, hearing about my family's day. And then, just also through like, photography and videos that I make in my own time. And I really just show them to my friends and families.
I feel most confident behind the scenes. I think that's also why I liked writing and film, because it's not a performance art. I tried theater for a little bit. It was fun, but I think that was more when I was a child and I was probably more confident in myself. And then I grew up and realized I probably shouldn't go on stage. So yeah, definitely behind the scenes I'm more comfortable. I'd rather, honestly, people not, unless it's my family, I'd rather people not really know, who did this art piece.
It's that moment of you hand work off to, even here when I hand my boss a cut of one of the documentaries, it's nerve-wracking because, I've put so many hours into making this or whatnot. I hope you like it. Please like it. I'm gonna get feedback on it, how to make it better, but it's always that idea of what if they don't? And so over time, I've definitely become more comfortable with sharing my work and getting feedback from different people. That's part of the job, right? Part of what you need to do, and that's filmmaking is it's a collaborative art, and that spans the whole spectrum: documentary, narrative, short film, features, commercial, music videos. It's all collaborative. You need people to help you make it, and you need people to help make it better.
Well, I'm the most comfortable, very tangibly. Well, I was gonna say Colorado because this is a show I started. It's my show, so I'm very confident in it. I could do it with my eyes closed. It's just we've done almost 80 stories now, half-hour, some hour-long documentaries. So I'm very comfortable in that environment with my team because they're people that I have physically hired and trained. So very, very comfortable in that environment. I really want to go back to narrative, and which is where I started. And I said it's really hard to make a low-budget film. Well, I just want to make a film now, and I'd like to have some money associated with it. So I'm slowly working on that. I've written a script, but it's not documentary. There's a different production process. So I am like a fish out of water, and my confidence is pretty much non-existent because I haven't done it before. So, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I can think of one time where I wasn't comfortable going on a shoot that they wanted me to go on, and it ended up that the story fell through. And it was going to a bar to shoot strippers, and I wondered why they were going to send me to shoot that video. And it was probably it was the most uncomfortable I felt. And being in a broadcast space for my career, you always had to be comfortable with everybody and anybody looking at your story, because it was for air. So I would say that beyond that one experience, I really haven't had I really haven't had a time where I felt uncomfortable with my work being shown to anybody, just because that's the space I grew up in.
Could you tell me what you're doing right now?
Yes, okay, so I'm uploading the footage that we shot today onto the computer, and then I'm going to edit out the really long pauses so we can send it to a transcriptor, and then we can use those scripts to help write our script.
So you guys write your script after doing, like, shooting the primary content?
They usually have a basic idea of what they're going to do. They have the questions that they want to ask, most of the research, and then once they get their answers from the interview, they can like refine that and know what they need to do more of or get more photos of. So yeah, that definitely helps.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, so here is the clip of the first woman that we interviewed today, and then we have the other ones of the second interviewee. So I'm just going to upload these to Premiere and then start editing.
We're going to go downstairs, and downstairs is where we have more of our edit labs. Our workspace has changed throughout the years, so we have gone from offices to what you'll see here soon, more of a communal workspace environment, kind of like, think Google. And so because we have different shows and we are all interacting differently with each other, part of the belief is that, well, then we should all be able to talk to each other instead of, secluded into our own edit bays. However, sometimes when you're editing, you need to block out all the distractions and whatnot. So having edit bays such as these allow people to work a little bit better, check their audio a little bit better. Having different monitors, so instead of me having to check it on a TV, a lot of times they'll have a program monitor, or essentially it's a TV monitor that's fully calibrated to what you would see on an actual TV, and so that way we can always check our color levels and everything like that to ensure, again, the highest of quality, that the image that we are putting out, the final product, will show up accurately on TVs across the state or the nation. We used to have various edit bays, and so along this wall you have different stations and different rooms and everything like that. As technology's changed, we've been able to kind of streamline a lot of what we do, and so all of us are kind of Renaissance people. We all know how to write, direct, edit, research, color, everything like that, just because we now have the capabilities to do so. And so you kind of have to be a master of all trades, a little bit. But different rooms have been repurposed, and you'll see in here even, we have to keep our older equipment up and running, or even there by the door. So we have to keep it up and running, functioning well, because we still use it, and we're very fortunate that we have engineers and whatnot that are capable of repairing these older, this older equipment to keep us on the air, to keep us able to do what we do.
One of my favorite pieces that I've created, this is when I was a student at Elon University, but it's called Toast, and it is I think a 3-minute film or so. I don't know. He's going through this entire, very almost scientific process of how to make the perfect piece of toast in a toaster oven. And he finally finds one he's happy with. He places it on a plate, pours a cup of coffee, picks everything up. The coffee falls and ruins the toast, right? And I think I love it so much because it was simple, but it really drew people in. And then at the end, everybody's reaction, I love watching them more than I love watching the piece, because the toast falls and people are like, oh my God, no, my heart, right? It was ruined. He had it, all of this stuff, and it's that emotional response that I think we really try to get as storytellers, and that's the one piece that I've been able to elicit a continuous response from again and again.
But yeah, sometimes I've said this before about biology or science in general. I kind of realized over time as I was majoring in it that everything I learned was presented as a story. Like each process was a story. They also had stories, in history, like how DNA was discovered. But every process that they presented was a story, and I realized that, even if I did biology, it wouldn't be limited in that way. I could still tell stories through, research papers or whatnot, data. So, they're everywhere.
I think the best ones are ones that take people to that time and that space, and they have an emotional component to them. That's the best stories that are very human. The one that I finished earlier this year, it was on the Gang of 19, and it was the beginning of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was part of the civil rights movement, but it was here and it was in Denver and it was kind of quiet, and they threw themselves in front of these buses because they couldn't get on the bus. This is the time before buses were, handicap accessible. And so they literally blocked a bus at Colfax and Broadway, made a traffic jam for I think it was 24 hours. It was 2 days. I loved working on it because I love that community. I've done a lot of work within the, I don't like to say disabled community, but folks who are living in living with wheelchairs.
I keep going back to Arts District and artist profiles, because artists have so many great things to say, and they're so insightful. I was influenced by some of the artists that we did our profiles on. A particular one would be Chris Connor of Connor Wood Bicycles. I got to follow him through the process of building a wooden bike. So I got him from shopping to finishing. And he was very kind to let me spend so much time in his shop with him. So I had to be mindful of his process, and I had to be mindful of the settings on the Mighty camera. And did I want to take a chance on different settings now? So I shot kind of conservatively with the camera and used settings that I knew would work, and then made notes so I could try different things on my own without having a deadline and a story that was going to air.
So I did one that I showed in video art. It's super weird, but I thought it was funny. So there's this conspiracy that the world's elite are lizard people, but it was this short film. I think it was 2 minutes long, just about my life as a lizard person, and how I go through the day, and if I do something weird and awkward, it's because I'm actually a lizard. My professor died, he loved it, but everyone else in my class was what is wrong with this girl? But I think the university liked it. They thought it was creative.
What's your understanding of how SAM first got started?
It started with a passion for wanting to have the history of Rocky Mountain PBS be known to all. It's also a lot of the history of Denver and of Colorado. SAM has several departments, so photos, the document preservation, memorabilia, production, preservation. Oral history interviews would be wonderful to be able to hear in their own words from the people that started the station. We now have about 40 volunteers who volunteer currently in the SAM office. We volunteer every day, Monday through Friday, all day, 9 to 5. So here we are in the production library. All productions that are local programs that we have produced have a tape in this library. And we are assigning all of the items through the SAM area have an accession number that is unique to what they mean. I am one of those volunteers that started in 1986. And I started because of a friend of mine on our block worked at Rocky Mountain PBS. It was KRMA at the time. And she asked me to come down and answer the phones for one of their fund drives. And so I did, and mostly just to kind of get away from the house a little bit. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I enjoyed coming down, and before I knew long, I was chairing that and chairing that and chairing that. We wanted to be able to have storage, and again, money. Money is the key thing. So we applied for a grant to the Corporation of Public Broadcasting and received 2 individual grants. This was the first project that started archiving other things than the productions. Not very many stations were archiving photographs or doing oral history interviews or memorabilia items. But where it's really changed is probably the file maker, the digitizing of things. When we first started, there really was not digital cameras. So when you think of the technology that has changed, we were receiving photographs on paper, printed out paper at that time. We've been doing a digital, some negatives that we found, that were early on done as the negatives that we just saw. But I think technology would be where I would say that we've really changed a lot with what we've been doing. And through 18 years, we are not using the same software that we used 18 years ago when we first started. You know, I think our goals were to identify and document and preserve the history. And that's pretty much still our goal, is to do that. I think what we would like to do is to see that the information now that we have documented and identified is used more than it is right now. So our future goals will be to do a PR, I think, or so, of saying we're ready now. Come ask us all these questions. I think we can answer those questions, and to be able to use that in the station, but then also to possibly have it available outside of the station.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest way that storytelling has evolved is just so many more people feel empowered to participate and tell their stories than ever before, and that's really exciting because no matter what the intentions, the historic record has primarily been written by older white men. And so this idea that now storytelling is a democratic platform for everybody to participate in creating the historic record is something that's, I think, a very exciting contributor to a democracy, certainly, and to civilization as a whole. And I think that the way people are telling stories is a lot different. You know, the idea that you can tell your story on video is something that's relatively modern idea, and now you can do it so easily as, you know, with your phone. So you don't have to, there's not an economic barrier between yourself and this ability to not just tell your story but share it and have people really want to hear it.
Yeah, but I would definitely want to have people working with me that believe that film should constantly be changing and evolving and just getting better and better and better. And that in order for it to get better, we need to change something, and that something should be the people telling the stories, because that's when we're gonna have the best films made.
Public storytelling has the responsibility to unveil issues that are current and past and possibly in the future. Like, it's free. It's free to the public. It's the one medium that anyone can access. So you have a responsibility to also include everyone. I think that's very important. And you also have a responsibility to, I guess, be informative in a way.
Especially working with Rocky Mountain PBS, right? We are all working toward the same goal. And so it's going back to, it's a collaborative art, right? That we all bring our life experience into the pieces we create, and the fact that we have a creative team that we share things with and bounce ideas back and forth with. And me being one of the youngest members of that team gives me a unique perspective. You grow with the people that are around you, and I think it's so fortunate that we have such a passionate and talented group that we work with here. Making films, documentaries, whatever it may be, is a collaborative art, because everybody is all working to create a strong finished product, and it's when everyone is centered around a common goal that I think magic happens.
Future storytellers are probably going to be more of your everyday sort of person, because more people are telling stories with video who don't have any serious background or training. So that's no longer, I don't know if it really ever has been a necessity for storytelling, but I think too there's a lot more offered course-wise to get people into video storytelling than there was when I was coming up. It's a lot more accessible. The gear is more accessible. You can shoot an entire documentary on a cell phone if you really wanted to.
But also I think that public media is going to become hyper-local, because nowadays anyone can watch Downton Abbey, which is from the BBC. It's not produced even in the United States, but people will come to realize they just go online, they can watch it. So for us to stay relevant as public media, we're going to have to hyper-localize so that they can only see this content through us. And that's going to be part of it. And I think we'll continue to convene people as well. Do you guys have the room?
I think we do.
Yep, we're done. Yeah. Give us one more minute. You good?
Yeah.